At eRoad, we believe fleet management doesn't have to be problematic. It should be effortless, connected, and future-ready for your heavy-duty operation. With a reliable, accurate technology solution, you can elevate your fleet's performance, improve productivity across your business, monitor events as they happen, and reduce costs and downtime. Get on the road to better fleet management and safer, more productive operations. Go beyond the basics and visit eroad.com today.
Welcome to Running on Ice, the coolest community in freight. I'm your host, Mary O'Connell, bringing you the latest tech updates, warehouse news, and everything happening in the cold chain world. Not only is there the coolest show in freight, but there's also Running on Ice, the newsletter that couldn't be colder. You can subscribe to that on freightwaves.com/runningonIce. Today, we welcome Orlando Candelaria, account executive at Tive. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mary. Appreciate it. Really excited to be here.
I'm kind of excited for today. We've talked about cargo theft a few times, but you are fresh off the heels of like the cargo theft conference. So before we get too far into that, though, let's get some background on you and kind of how you got started at Tive.
Awesome. So I've been in logistics for close to 10 years now. Previously, I was on the brokerage side working for C.H. Robinson and another broker. I transitioned to the shipper side and I worked for a logistics inbound for a produce company out of Delray. And more recently, I joined Tive. I'm coming up on my actual third Tiveversary. That's what we call anniversaries at Tive. So super excited. More recently, I've transitioned into an account executive role. I started off Tive setting up our 24/7 monitoring team, which kind of coincides with kind of the cargo theft sort of solution that we are offering.
I am excited. I do like the fact that you do have that cool brokerage background. As a former brokerage background girly myself, it's I find that like sometimes you miss it, but you only want to do it for like a couple days. You don't want to do it all day, every day, because you just miss the thrill of like, solving this problem or getting this like, or just the chaos of it. But then like when you don't get called at 2 a.m. because some driver can't check into a guard shack, you're like, I don't miss it anymore.
Completely agree with you. I mean, the thrill of having to cover a load at, 4 p.m. on a Friday, end of month, end of quarter, on the heels of a hurricane. That's just, what gets your blood pumping. And then, kind of even sitting on the floor, it's like boiler room. So you do miss it. But like you said, just having that ease of not having to wake up at 2:30 in the morning to get someone checked in or delivered. Definitely.
It's quite nice. It's quite nice. It's like that. If I could just go back and do it for like a day, that would be wonderful. But sadly, that's not an option. But what is an option is the cargo theft conference that you went to last week. So if you don't mind kind of breaking down what were some of the common trends, common things that people were seeing, is there any hot trends, hot up and coming things in the cargo theft world?
So there's some good news and kind of some bad news. Starting with the bad news, unfortunately, again, from 2023 to 2024, we're seeing, close to 50% increases in cargo theft. The latest, CargoNet Verisk data is showing close to 4,000 thefts in 2024. That's the projection. So, the good news or the good part of that is that we're able to do something about it by mitigating risk and coming together at conferences like this. Some major trends or themes of the conference was more around networking. So, the conference brings together competitors, the private sector, the public sector, but we're all there together to share information and to share what best practices are in the actual industry. So networking is crucial to know who to call and when to call. You never know when you can help someone out. And also, in the same respect, you never know when someone might be able to help you out. The biggest key is not only networking, but also trying to mitigate your risk. Doing things on the front end, with brokerage, being on the brokerage side, making sure that you're working with trusted carriers. Know the people that you're doing business with on a personal level. Don't just, for particular freight also, don't go onto the load boards, right? If you're shipping high value, high targeted freight, the load boards aren't where you're going to procure the best carriers. So again, those relationships and kind of networking, not only the shippers with, the carriers, but also working with trusted brokers as well. We all know that brokers belong in the supply chain and there is a reason for them. So just making sure that, again, you're doing work with people you know and trust. Also, just, along with the relationships and knowing the people that you're doing business with, it's also making sure that you're mitigating risk as far as having trackers on your actual cargo. So before, ELD, apps, other things were good enough as far as requirements for shipping high value or high targeted freight. But now it's kind of a requirement that we need to know the condition and the location of the actual freight.
I think that is something, first of all, that was a lot to unpack, but starting with the first part of it, of that networking part, I think as much as people have been in the past, have been very hesitant to admit that, they've been a victim of cargo theft, et cetera, et cetera. I think that the more that we can kind of share our resources, the less likely it is to continue to happen. Because if carrier A takes advantage of me and I don't say anything about it, then that carrier A can go on and take advantage of more people. Whereas if, it's because it's now to the point where it's not just like, only those that aren't doing their job or are kind of bad at their job are getting are becoming victims of cargo theft. It's literally everyone. And if it hasn't happened to you, it's literally just a matter of time before it happens. So I think that communication is obviously very, very important. And also, one of the things that you mentioned is obviously not putting high value freight on a load board, which I would hope that you wouldn't do in the first place. But hey, desperate times call for desperate measures. We've all been there. The other thing is, a lot of like TMS providers and other organizations have kind of an already pre-vetted list of carriers that you can go to before you even have to come across a potential load board situation. So I think that is another kind of, there's a lot of different tools out there to kind of work from. But I think really, like you mentioned, it's just going to come down to a lot of that communication and a lot of like, hey, this is what's happening. This is what we're seeing. This is a new scheme that we got by. But one of the things that I think you mentioned that's really important is that those, like, it's more than just tracking and tracing and knowing where your freight is. One of the things that I actually think is the most impressive that you guys have is the like light trackers. So that way, whenever like a door is opened, you know exactly where it was opened, what time. Because, most temperature sensitive goods and most goods getting attacked or becoming victims of theft, they don't happen to travel in the trailers that just have nothing but holes in the sides. Yep. So it's kind of a thing. It's not like, just an errant sunbeam caught a tracker. It's like a real thing. And I think that is especially crucial, obviously not necessarily in deterring theft, because if they're going to steal, they're going to steal. But knowing where it happens, so that way you can kind of recognize a pattern and say, okay, well, we noticed that 5 out of 9 times we have a theft happen in the first 100 miles from this specific receiver. And I think that is some of the kind of historical data that you can use to kind of be better informed about what to do in the future.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, again, those SOPs or procedures and processes that you kind of set up on the front end, right? Again, hey, here's the carriers we can use for X freight. Here's, if we don't have those carriers, hey, here's the process. We move it to the next day. All of those things, by mitigating it again, and then also using real-time tracking, we're able to do something in the moment now. As soon as those doors open, you're able to know, like you said, exactly where that is. So again, on the front end, what we do with our customers, we set up escalation protocols based on our specific alerts. So then there's no guessing game when these actual things happen. You know exactly what to do, who to call. So then it's kind of getting the ball rolling, because we all know time's against you when it comes to any kind of theft.
Yeah, and I think that you hit that really important part of, you set up those SOPs before something happens. So that way, when this happens, this is the response, versus, oh, I have an alert. How do I do this? What do I do? And then because if there's not necessarily that SOP to follow, or there's not a set way of, if this happens, then do this, then I feel like that brings in a lot of time for people to panic and kind of just wind the situation up, or possibly make something worse, or miss some information. So I really, really like that there's that part that is, no, this is how to be proactive about it. Because it's one of those, you hope you don't need it, but unfortunately you more than likely are going to.
Exactly. And like I said, right now with real-time devices, they're able to give proactive alerts, right? So we're able to direct those to people that can escalate to the authorities in real time, and they're able to save shipments in real time. And we've seen multiple times where things are getting, transloaded. Things are getting, on the side of the road, they're getting broken into. All of those things, like, we've actually seen, and we're able to dispatch our partners so then they're able to escalate to the authorities and catch them in the act, which we've never had that technology before.
I hope you know that when you say, like, the theft on the side of the road, the first picture that popped into my mind is like a box truck backed up to a truck, and they're just like pallet jacking stuff over, and then the police roll up and go, "What you doing?"
Exactly. Crazy.
Like, I know that that's not necessarily the case, but that's like the first thing that popped into my head. And I just, I like to think that that's what happens, is the police just roll up and go, "What you doing? You stealing some stuff? You want to
what is
put it
that?
back?" I don't know if you guys have had this, but has anyone like stolen freight and then like left the tracker on it?
Yeah, so that's really, kind of, again, our layered approach, right? You might be able to stop it in progress, but, they're covertly putting trackers in packages, and then they're able to track them and build cases. And that's really kind of, at the end of the day, what we're trying to help our customers do. Like you said, build trends, understand what's going on in a otherwise kind of invisible supply chain. We're giving that visibility back, that, hey, these people are actually doing this, or, hey, we thought it was X person or X people, but really it might be somewhere else in our supply chain that they're losing product. So
That is, first of all, just a chef's kiss as a thief, of like, "Oh, I got this freight," and then the police just show up like, "Hey, just steal that, because we'd like it back, please."
Yep, exactly. And it gets within 20 meters, so it's pinging people's homes when we're seeing it, right? So that data in real time is able to, like I said, build cases. We're able to help the public sector as far as escalating.
When it comes to like the types of, obviously, criminals, they like to just, we've talked about it before, they like anything they can sell quickly. and those high value items, of course. Like if a big old shipment of diamonds is going by, I'm sure that's quite a target. I'm also not sure how you would ship a diamond, like a lot of them. I assume they're not going on a pallet. Anyway,
I'm thinking in my mind satchels, right?
yes, like velvet bags,
Yeah.
like on someone's wrist.
Yes, that's how I envision diamonds traveling.
100%. Except the really big one is always in like a briefcase, like with a
Of
phone
course.
cut out.
Yeah, yeah.
Hollywood has taught me many things.
Yes, yes.
But have you seen, so like I know that beverages, like certain drinks or whatever is very common to be stolen, which I still think is very weird. But obviously I'm not a criminal, so I don't understand that like thought process. Have you seen like a certain type of commodity be like the main target? But also just on a quick little tangent, because apparently that's who I am today. I would love someone to break into like an ultra cold refrigerated unit where everything's like -degrees Celsius, and just be like, let's steal, and then like their hands get burned.
Yeah.
Because I
Or
feel like
frozen.
that would be really awkward of like, hey, welcome to the ER. How do you have like burns on your hand and like medical problems from touching things at like -degrees Celsius? Then that would be a very awkward conversation.
Well,
But anyway, is there a certain commodity that you've seen that, is more of a target, or that you should maybe put a little bit more attention on?
so I think the combination of being high value, high target, and like you said, kind of easy to flip on the black market, all of those things kind of go into, what these criminals are targeting. From the data that we see, food, like you said, food and beverage is the number one commodity. Next is going to be your household products. Because again, you can, post them on Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace. I mean, we've all seen those and you're like, oh, a pallet of Clorox wipes? So, all of those things. And by the way, it's pennies on the dollar, right? The next thing we see is electronics, again, because it's high value, high targeted, and it's easy to sell. But really the crazy thing that we've seen in the last kind of 6 months is the metals industry. And the reason why is because it can be the metals and non-ferrous and ferrous metals can be melted down within hours and you'll never find it again. So it's very hard to trace. So that kind of traceability is now playing a role in what is being targeted. Because like you said, there's shippers and carriers and others collecting data and sharing data of what is being stolen, but then also you're able to enter SKUs and do other things, and again, share the information across, hey, here's what has been stolen. If anyone sees it, it belongs to us. And then also you're able to then have trends and show trends of, hey, here's the last, X amount of, shipments that got stolen on this particular route. Here's what they were. So then you're able to then maybe reroute your shipments.
What do you like? You have to have quite a setup to melt down a whole bunch of metal. And then also, like, what do you do? Like, I just like from the criminal perspective, like, okay, I melt down all this metal, but then like, what do I do with it?
I think it's a lot more that we're seeing the rise in strategic theft. So again, it's not, maybe electronics and, household and food and bev is more straight theft or crimes of opportunity. Whereas, hey, we're targeting this particular mine. We see that, hey, they get loaded A, B, and C. They ship always to this particular delivery location. So that's how we've seen kind of more targeted theft. And it's not even being stolen in the traditional ways of, like you said, just opening the back of the trailer. We're seeing the criminals come from overseas, or really, we don't even know where they're at. They're hacking into TMSs. They're changing delivery locations. They're buying and selling MC numbers, which is really something that I was never really aware of. But hey, let's get your business, sell our MC, and then, kind of steal the product that we're trying to get.
The MC selling, they literally will advertise on like Reddit of like, hey, can I have this? And I'm literally sitting there and I'm like, you know that this is not a thing. Like, that this is like the number one way to get caught, my guy. So like, maybe don't put it on Reddit.
Exactly.
But I will admit that the one unfortunate thing about all of this is that it is creating some smarter criminals, or it is creating less of a smash and grab and more of a, oh, I can do just a little bit of research and some mild illegal activity and get a more targeted. I can find what I'm looking for or find what I know I can offload quicker, which is a little terrifying, just a little bit. But yeah, just I don't love that they've become a bit more sophisticated. I really wish that they would just go back to like, give me a trailer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and really it's digging down into what kind of strategic theft is it? Is it selling of MC numbers? Is it fictitious pickups? Is it just, a hack, right? I mean, we've seen where there's innocent truck drivers that are getting involved, but really they're just picking up a shipment like they would on any other day, hacked into a TMS, and now they're delivering it to a cross dock. Again, an innocent bystander in not knowing that they're part of actual cargo theft. So it blows my mind how technologically advanced they're getting.
Yeah, it's concerning. Because again, like you said, it's not just affecting a shipper anymore. It's truly like, as a carrier, if I'm going to pick up a shipment, do I know that it's legitimate? Is it going somewhere? Like, what? Like, it kind of makes you second guess everything, even if it is a legitimate thing. But yeah, that's why everybody needs to have some procedures in place to validate and verify people's identities, because the last thing we want is to open ourselves up to an unfortunate situation.
Yep. And that, again, goes back to the SOPs, the pickup procedures, the vetting of trusted people that you're doing business with, all on the front end, right? So you don't have to deal with it on the back end.
Right. And my final thing is, anytime someone's being cagey about giving out information, just go ahead and hang up the phone. Doesn't matter how desperate you are. Go ahead and hang up that phone. The second they're like, why do you need to know my driver's name? Sir. But yeah, just anytime someone's being shady, just click.
Yep. Or let's just roll the load, right? If we can't find anybody, let's just pick it up tomorrow.
Yep, because then that's when you have to go, hey, shipper, I'm going to move this. And if they throw a fit, then I'm like, okay, well then, or I could send it with some random guy who assures me that this is legit, which means you're never going to see this load again. So which one do you want to do?
Yeah. Over communicate.
So Orlando, we have come to, honestly, maybe the hardest question you'll be asked all day today. But everyone that comes on the show has to answer it. So Orlando, is cereal considered a soup?
So I don't think cereal is a soup. And there's a few reasons. So A, it's not hot. And I know that there's soups that are not hot, but growing up as a kid, tomato soup and grilled cheese, I mean, that's what soup is defined. But I will say, my daughter does say it's a soup because she eats it as a meal. So her thing is, hey, if it's a meal, hey, I'm going to call anything soup. Okay,
that's a first if it's because it's a meal.
Yep.
You know, first of all, I like that you're on the correct side of cereal is not soup, because that's where I am. But I do appreciate your daughter's logic. You know, it's a meal, so to me, it's a snack. Even if I eat it
No,
for like breakfast, it's like a breakfast snack. You know,
of course. A
'cause
late
it
night
is.
snack sometimes.
You know, if someone used to make fun of me for having like a little snack while I was making dinner, because sometimes you're just really hungry and you need a little pre-snack. You know.
Pre-snack. They call that a amuse-bouche.
Yes, and a amuse bouche of cereal from a coffee mug. Watch out, fine dining. Here we come.
Here we come.
All right, Orlando, if someone has questions on your cereal opinions, or if they want to pick your brain for any cargo theft trends or solutions that we guys might have, where can they find you outside the show?
So I am on LinkedIn. You just have to search Orlando Candelaria Jr. I'm also, you can also reach me at orlando.candelaria@tybe.com. That's ORLANDO.CANDELARIA@tybe.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Mary. It's been a pleasure.
You can catch other episodes of Running on Ice right here on FreightWaves TV, YouTube, or anywhere else you get your podcasts like Apple Podcast and Spotify. Need more Running on Ice news? No sweat. Subscribe to the newsletter on freightwaves.com/runningonIce. See you on the internet.